I graduated from college, and soon after that, my mother had a major stroke, which left her incapacitated. My little brother was 11, and my little sister was 5. I moved in with the family, and I took care of my mother until she died, and I took care of the children for another 5 years. Then my brother finished high school, joined the Marines, and my older sister had gotten married, and they had their first baby, and it was decided that my little sister would live with them for a while. And that was the year I met my husband, and he was my dream man. He was tall, handsome, he loved the Lord, and he loved to read. He was everything I'd ever wanted, and I thank God for bringing us together. We were married that year, and we had 2 years of joy and blessing. Then we were expecting our first baby in the fall. And that summer, my husband had a major attack of Crohn's disease. He was in the hospital almost 2 months, and we didn't know if he would live. But he did, and he was able to leave the hospital even though he was very weak, 6 weeks before our baby was due. Our little boy was the most beautiful baby. He was always smiling and laughing and seemed so happy. My husband's health improved along with his joy in the baby. When he was 9 months old, we were driving on an unfamiliar highway. We went over a slight hill and were in the middle of a sharp curve. The car was going a little too fast and rolled over. This was before the day of seat belts and infant seats. We were all thrown out. My husband was thrown into the steering wheel and the windshield and had broken ribs and facial cuts. I was thrown out and landed on the grass and didn't have any injury. Our baby had been lying in the back seat sleeping. When he was thrown out, he landed on the pavement. He had a massive skull fracture. We prayed fervently. Our church prayed. All of our friends prayed that God would heal him. And he died. I can't express the pain and grief that we felt. There aren't any words to describe it. My husband not only was engulfed with grief, but he was overcome with guilt because he had been driving the car. When I tried to speak words of comfort, he became angry and wouldn't discuss it. I was afraid I was going to lose my husband as well as my baby. I took a job teaching in a school that was 45 minutes from where we lived because I couldn't bear the thought of sitting alone in the house all day. The 45-minute drive to my school was the only place I could cry because I couldn't cry in front of my husband. His grief was so great that I didn't feel he could bear mine on top of his. When I would start driving to school in the morning, I'd start to cry. I could cry for about 30 minutes, and then I would have to collect myself and calm down so I could go into school and teach. At the end of the day, when I was driving home, as I started to drive, I'd start to cry. I could cry and sob and weep for 30 minutes. Then I had to collect myself and have a calm appearance when I met my husband who would be coming home. I cried every day. I began to have a sense that Jesus was in the car with me, and he was crying. At that point in my daily Bible reading, I came to the book of John, the 11th chapter, It's where it tells about a man named Lazarus who died, and he had 2 sisters, and the family had been Jesus' friends. So when Jesus heard Lazarus had died, he went to the sisters, and they were overcome with grief. The Bible says when Jesus saw their distress, he wept. And I thought, that's how he responded to their grief. He understood, and he loved them so much that he wept with them. And that's how he was responding to my grief. He could understand, and he was compassionate, and he loved me to the point that he was crying with me. I had been a Christian at that point for 10 years. I had known the Lord, I had known the presence of the Lord. I had read the Bible, I had prayed, but I have never had such a vivid sense of the presence of God with me as riding in the car, that Jesus was crying with me. It gave me a different impression of the presence of the God in my life that stayed with me. In the 56 years since that took place, it has affected my awareness of the Lord being with me. I've been a believer now for 70 years. Long life. I've had other times of sorrow. I've had times of stress. I've had times of great joy. God gave us a beautiful daughter and a wonderful son. And now I have 8 delightful grandchildren. I have been blessed.